All right, everyone, welcome back to the TexAgs High School Football Show as we roll along to Week 9 across the state of Texas with some big-time matchups across DFW, a big one out in San Antonio, some more in Houston. I am Ryan Brauninger, joined as always with Jason Howell. Last week, I got to get back on the road after a week off from baseball. Jason doesn't miss any weeks. He's always out and about, and so we will start this week, as we always do, with Jason and his experience last week in DFW, what he saw and then what he liked, and then maybe some scores across the area that caught his eye. Jason?
Well, the one thing I was reminded of over the weekend was, expect the unexpected. The game I thought was going to be a blowout was close, and the game I thought was going to be close was a blowout. Hazlitt Eaton and Hunter Erb were able to secure the win over Keller Central, a team they were, heavily favored over. But it was a close one, 22-19, and it went all the way down to the wire. It was one of those games. I think they came in a little bit overconfident. They played some sloppy ball. Ask Hunter how he felt after the game, and he was pretty self-critical.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably one of the worst games I've
You love
I've
that, though,
out
of prospects. I like when they're self-critical.
Yeah.
You hold themselves to a high standard. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it wasn't awful, but it was, it was definitely one. I think they were caught looking ahead to South Lake Carroll this weekend. And Central has some guys. They have some young talent. One that I was excited to see in person was Joseph Matumbo, 6'5", 225-pound, 23 defensive end, really raw, but has some nice tools. And I got to see Jalen White kid, a 24, I think, DB, had an interception with a 47-yard return. Pretty nice little play as he jumped the route there. And then Friday night it was DeSoto over Cedar Hill, 45-0.
I thought that one was going to be close. Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a lot closer than that. And the final score looked a lot worse than it actually was. It was 17-0 at the end at halftime, and it was 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. I thought both defenses played really well. At the end of the day, it came down to field position, and DeSoto was, constantly in the red zone the whole first half. And Chris Henley was able to pound away. That offensive line was able to give him some creases, and he was able to, big back, was able to find the end zone a few times there in the first half. And then added the first touchdown of the second half. So he gets my player of the game. But Kylan Salter, he came in at 23 linebackers. He was in on just about every single play. I thought Jalen Peoples, 22 cornerback, he was paired up on John Tate Cook pretty much for a lot of the night, and did a really good job, keeping Jonte's big plays to a minimum. And, granted, DeSoto was going mainly towards the ground attack, but he did a pretty good job in with a tough assignment. So those were what I saw in person. Yeah, it was a fun weekend for sure.
Well, down in Houston, I'd circled this game whenever the schedules came out, and I thought, looking at both schedules, I was like, hey, this might be a battle of two undefeateds at the time. And if Connor Wigman hadn't gotten hurt, it probably would have been. But I went down there to see Cy Park and Bridgeland. It was a game where Connor Wigman gave it a go. Now, I said gave it a go because he warmed up, and you could tell when he came out in warm-ups that his right leg was heavily, heavily wrapped. Hamstring injury that occurred 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks prior, in the game against Cy Woods. And when you're looking at soft tissue injuries like hamstrings, you're going, it's 2 weeks enough. Depends on the severity of it. He looked okay in warm-ups when there was no pressure. The clock was kind of moving slow, and you can go through the motions in warm-ups. Looked okay. Did not start the game. They had him on what they called a pitch count. They were going to try to play him anywhere from 18 to 25 plays. Connor thought if it felt better, if his hamstring felt okay, that it would be more. But it was evident from the first drop back that he took whenever he came into the game, it wasn't right. When you watch Connor play fully healthy, you're kind of in awe about the speed in which he plays with, how quick and decisive he is. The ball comes out on time with good velocity. Ball placement's a big deal. And really, when you take one of your wheels completely away, it makes it really hard to play against a high-caliber football team in Cy Park. And talking to Connor after the game, he said, I felt like a chicken in a pen full of wolves. He's like, I just couldn't, and I couldn't get away. He's like, I just couldn't move how I wanted to. And it was very obvious. And so he tried to play. If he was at 40%, I'd be really surprised. But he tried to give it a go. He clearly needs more time. He's got that hamstring, but he also has a bruised heel on the same leg, on the same foot. So he probably just needs some downtime. Bridgeland needs to win one of their final two games to get into the playoffs. They probably will. They've got some teams that have struggled later on the schedule, but that shouldn't take away from what Cy Park did. The preparedness of Cy Park on the night, they were very well coached, had it very well schemed up, offensively and defensively. Obviously, the big standout there for them is Harold Perkins, was just sensational. And Harold's the number one player in our rankings in the state for a reason. He's a consensus 5-star everywhere you look for a reason, and he shows up and he plays that way every single Friday night. And I think he's averaging something like 14 yards a carry on the season as a running back.
Just ridiculous.
He had a one-handed catch. He had an interception. Just everywhere, sideline to sideline, up and down the field. He can do it all. He's the most impressive linebacker prospect I've ever covered, I've ever watched. Just insanely gifted athletically and plays the game that way. You know, we go out and we cover a bunch of 5-stars all the time, Jason, that you see it, but he's a 5-star because he's 6'6" and he's 240 pounds with long arms and he can really bend. But when the lights come on, maybe he's not as physical as you want him to be, or maybe he doesn't play with the greatest effort all the time. But Perk,
have you ever seen Perk have an off night?
No, Perk plays that way in every setting. 7-on-7, camps. Perk is wired that way every time he goes out and plays, and I think that's what makes him such a national elite prospect. But you know, it's not just him for Cy Park. They're undefeated now, climbing toward the top 15 in the state. One, because Harold Perkins is really good, but they've got a really good scheme. They got some real talent. Jarrah Anderson, a 2023 defensive lineman, was fantastic on the night. He's got an offer from, I believe, K-State, and he's going to have some more offers pour in here soon. Nate Livingston's a 2022 running back linebacker. Cameron King's another one of their running backs. They've got a really intriguing 2024 quarterback in Deion Batiste, who kind of splits time. You look at their defensive backfield, and they're like a bunch of kids that are like 5'11" to 6'1" playing DB, and you're going, man, they look really physical. They look really good. So Coach Greg Rogers there, they moved to 7-0. The last year was the first time they'd ever made the playoffs. This year they're eyeing a district championship, and they've got a big one with Cy Ranch coming up. So if they can handle that against Cy Ranch, I believe they'll clinch the district championship. And that's a team that I call, like, when I went and saw them in the spring and I was doing my spring tour and I stopped in there, and Coach Rogers starts sending me all these guys. And I'm going, you know, this team is not talked about enough in Greater Houston. They're going to have a chance to make some noise.
Guys.
And they certainly have put it all together this year. It's a young school, new school. So I think, you know, a huge congratulations should go out to them up to this point, but I know they're not content with just what they've done. I'm talking to Perk after the game. They're trying to go way higher. So really impressive night from Cy Park. Hoping that Connor Wigman can get back to 100%, because when he does, Bridgeland becomes a real threat in the playoffs. And somebody, Jason, because Bridgeland goes north towards your area because they're in Region 2. That 6A Region 2 kind of engulfs North Houston as well, some parts of North Houston. So there's going to be somebody from the DFW region that's going to end up maybe with a Bridgeland as a 4 seed and a healthy Connor Wigman, and you're going, that's terrible luck for us. We win a district and we get a healthy Connor Wigman. Yeah,
and like you said, with Wigman healthy, they're not a deep playoff threat. They're a state championship threat.
Yeah, you've seen that, yes.
Yeah, he takes them to a whole different level. And like you said, the only thing that can that can help those soft tissue injuries is time and treatment, you hope, that he can bounce back, because that just means so much to that team.
Well, I did want to hit on one other game in Houston that stood out to me was the Atascocita versus C.E. King. C.E. King came in undefeated. Atascocita had the one loss to Denton Guyer. Atascocita starting their backup quarterback, a sophomore, Zion Brown, and Atascocita wins by 20. So another really impressive benchmark or, spot on the resume for Coach Stump's group. C.E. King's a very talented roster. They're up against it again. They got North Shore this week. So that district looks like it's going to be pretty tough when you consider C.E. King, North Shore, Atascocita, Beaumont, Westbrook. There's some real players in that district right there from Northeast Houston all the way to Beaumont, and how that shakes out with a healthy Bryce Anderson at Beaumont Westbrook. The final 3 weeks in that district are going to be fun to watch.
And that district reminds me a lot of that, Duncanville, DeSoto, Cedar Hill, and I'm going to put Waxahachie up there in that group. I think they're that fourth team that a lot of people aren't paying attention to. They took a big one on the chin against Duncanville last week, but Duncanville's starting to get that thing rolling too. So they're going to be putting a thumping on just about everybody as they gear up for the playoffs. But I got to throw in the Allen Denton Guyer game. Sure. I had Guyer the favorite at home, but Allen went to Denton and they put it on them 38-31, a close ball game, pulled out the win with one of my favorite little running backs, Jalen Jenkins, doing a lot of the damage, 15 carries for 190 yards and 3 touchdowns on the night. He's been getting it done all year long. If he had some track times, this is a kid I think you'd hear a lot more buzz about. But he's starting to pick up some offers, and that was one to watch. And then you mentioned him last week, Louisville's still
keep rolling, yep.
And Ennis. Keep an eye on the Ennis Lions. They've got
it's
a 5A
Division 2, Division 1.
They are Division 2, and they've
yeah.
got a big one this weekend against Forney. They go on the road. Forney's been hot lately, and I think that'll be one of the games to keep an eye on this weekend. I look for Ennis to pull it out, but Forney's going to give them a nice little run. It'll probably be their biggest district matchup so far. So,
well, I'll stay in 5A Division 2 and shout out a team that might be the biggest surprise in this region. The Montgomery Bears are undefeated and in the top 10 and beat A&M Consolidated last week on a kind of a last minute. A&M Consolidated had the ball driving down the field. They get the ball unexpected snap to end the game. So unfortunate there, but Montgomery moves to 8-0, is now up to 7 in the state. And so really impressive job there, and a school that hasn't been more known on the baseball side of things, but so cool to see them having a great year and moving up the rankings. Jason, looking ahead to this week, where are you going and what are you looking for outside of maybe the game you're at? What are some of the other big games in the Metroplex?
Well, I will be at Naaman Forest Rowlett on Thursday night. See a little Marcus Deal, see some Trey Walton. They got a nice running back, Kingsley Bennett. That's another one of those smaller, shifty guys that's been putting up some big numbers. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And Rowlett, they're coming off a big win over North Garland. They kind of getting back on track. And Michael Ibukun, who was, I want to say, his Dallas Morning News Defensive Player of the Week this week, had a big pick 6 and was just in on a lot of plays last week against North Garland. I'm looking at on Friday night. I will be at, where am I going to be at on Friday night? I got it all. I got it all figured out early in the week, but but yeah, I will.
Is it South Lake Carroll at Hazlitt Eaton?
No, I'm not going to that one.
That's a big one. That's a Thursday. That's a big one on Thursday.
That is a big one, and as I mentioned, that's one. I'm going to Pilot Point. Going to Pilot Point.
Okay.
Ponder to see Ish Harris. I knew I was sleeping on it, but that I'm looking forward to getting back out there. Last time I went out to Pilot Point, they had their hands full with Gunner, so I think this will be a little bit better matchup for the Bearcats, and I think Ish has really been hitting his stride. Has really picked things up over the last month or so. Seems like he's kind of what we saw a bit last year and taking a step forward, getting it done on offense and defense. And then outside of those two games, like you mentioned, South Lake Carroll, Eaton, I've got Geyer and McKinney Boyd. They're both one-loss teams in that District 5-6A. I've got Frisco at Lucas Lovejoy. This may be it's these two teams aren't talked about enough, but both of them undefeated, 7-5A Division II. Lucas Lovejoy, that's definitely a team to watch in that 5A D2. They are rolling, and they're putting up points in bunches. And
I think they had like a week one game where it got rescheduled and they played Bryan and beat the doors off of Bryan. That met them halfway at Waco ISD, and Bryan's a 6A school, and they beat the doors off of them.
Well, they have their receiving core is just ridiculous. All of them are getting offers, and they're all young. They've got Parker Livingston, Kyle Parker, and Jackson Lavender, who's just they're putting up big numbers. Their quarterback, his name is Alexander Franklin. He had 327 yards and 6 touchdowns last week.
Wow.
So against Lake Dallas. So they're definitely a team to watch. And Frisco, they like to get out there in that wing and keep you confused. But they got some big dudes up front, Cole Hudson. And they got a ground attack that can really eat you up real quick, and that should be fun to watch.
Well, I'm abandoning Houston for the weekend to head out to the Hill Country and take in Smithson Valley against Converse Judson, two of the more storied programs in Central Texas. Converse Judson, a little bit of a down year. Smithson Valley's been fantastic. Obviously, the main feature out there is 2023 A&M offensive line commit Colton Thomason, giant of a kid, just a mountainous human being. Taking on a Converse Judson team that features Johnny Bowens in the 2023 class, a highly offered kid on the defensive line. So hopefully we'll see that matchup take place throughout the night. But in Houston, probably I mentioned the North Shore C.E. King game. You got Spring Decaney against Spring Westfield, ton of talent in that one. I'm also looking at Katy Paetow against Fort Bend Hightower. Katy Paetow 7-0, Fort Bend Hightower 6-1. Both of them ranked in the top 10 in 5A Division I. We've talked about the job that Cornelius Anthony has done there at Fort Bend Hightower. Katy Paetow, a new program that you knew in that Katy area. They just opened another new school called Katy Jordan, and it wouldn't surprise you in about 5 or 6 years if we're talking about Katy Jordan being undefeated and state ranked. It's just the amount of talent in that West Houston area is crazy. So I'll be keeping an eye on that one. It's a good slate of games this week. We're excited to get back on the road. At least I am. I haven't been out to Smithson Valley until I was covering DeMarvin Leal, and Converse Judson went over there and played. And I'll tell you this, the most scenic stadium in Texas high school football that I've been to, Smithson Valley. Have you been?
I haven't actually covered a game there, but I've been past it, and it is beautiful.
Just tucked into those hills, and it's a really cool setting. So looking forward to that. We'll be looking forward, Jason, to your reports on Thursday and Friday from your games. From the TexAgs crew, we thank you for tuning in. We'll see you right back here next week on the TexAgs High School Football Show.